G'day, my name's Graham, Yorkshireman living down under here in Australia. And that's a strange place to be at the moment, but it's freer than it is in England at the moment, nor is it in America. I mean, let's face it, the West can no longer claim the bastion of freedom. It's locked up Julian Assange and lives in fear of offending certain races that do not have any fear or compunction about offending others. We can find on the Free Press, that is the net, the Free Press, that 800 churches have been burnt in France in recent while. 800 churches have been burnt by racist immigrants. Let's face it, people are migrating into countries that allow this immigration program that bring racist feelings with them, racist intolerance towards others with them. And I think it's time to look at immigration and say, well, if people examine the countries that people come from, if they do not invite people into their country freely, then like anywhere that has a problem integrating people in their country and in their community, and even integrating between themselves, may be a problem in the future as they go into another country as their numbers build up, as is happening in France. Let's face it, we don't want racism. It's no good. We don't want racism in our countries. And the best thing to do to stop racism is not to invite racists into our countries. Now, if there are lots and lots of racists coming into different nation, then it's bound to cause trouble, because there are people coming into a nation with intolerance towards those where they're entering. That's obviously the case in Europe, where people are going into Europe with no tolerance whatsoever for the Europeans and the European way of life. In fact, the antithesis to it seems. So they bring racism with them. And it's a shame. They bring racism, they come into a country, they bring their racist ways with them, and that may be the same reason they left their own country. The trouble and the ferment it caused in their own country is then brought into other countries. So let's have more trouble and ferment there, because they live to enjoy having trouble instead of a peaceful life. Which is, it's just the way people are. It's not actually race, it's cultural. Everyone uses the word race, racism, when it's nothing to do with race, because no matter where people come from, they can be civilized or uncivilized. There's nothing to do with race whatsoever. No matter what colour people are, religion people are, or whatever. It's their attitude. If people go into France and start burning churches down, it's not really the French people's racism, is it? What's caused that? It's people have come into that country with the intention of attacking or fermenting trouble in that country, exactly the same people who fermented trouble in their own country are fermenting trouble in other people's countries. Maybe it's not racism at all. Maybe there's a problem with these people inside their hearts towards other humans, that they have trouble living amongst each other in their own country, so they go elsewhere and have trouble living amongst other people in other countries. Then the Western media now is suppliant and compliant, whatever it is. It's no longer a democratic media, or no longer a bastion of free speech, which is a shame, because it could be. I mean, if all the media's got to do is stand united, all the press, what you call professional media, those that are paid, like politicians are and other people are, to speak and say only those things they're allowed to say, and a bit of information, bit of data, mostly it's noise, because they're not allowed to say that they live under the auspices of an agenda, which is to sort of, well, we won't go into what the agenda is. People can discover what Agenda 21 is themselves. I'm not going to go into that. But the thing is, it's a time that people with a cultural problem, and it's very important to understand, it's not racism. The clash of cultures There's no such thing. Racism is a word used by people who don't actually understand what the phenomenon is and what the dichotomy. The dichotomy is cultures, a cultural clash, usually according to education. If the people have got a poor education, they're easily stirred up, and they belong to little collectives. They're easily stirred up, especially from a male-dominated cultures. They're easily stirred up into acting stupidly, like burning a church down. Oh, look, we're all sort of heroes now because we burnt a church down. Oh, well, it's pretty, a pretty not very heroic thing to do to burn a church down. It's just vandalism, actually, and it's and when it's obviously these people like childlike minds to burn a church down. Who's telling them to burn church down? And if grown-ups are telling them to burn churches down, then we have to look at the whole immigration program so that adults don't come in with childlike minds in regards to intolerance towards others. I think the problem is the English language. I think the problem is journalists and politicians and everyone else are very, very poor at English. And I think this is what the biggest problem. And not only that, they don't understand what, in a scientific sense, what's actually going on. And unless we have that scientific understanding of what's actually going on, and the fact that science identifies, then it's a cultural problem, not a racist problem. To say it's racism, not to actually have a problem with people coming into your country that then start attacking your institutions and your religious edifices and religious buildings, that can't be racism to react to that. That's not racism, that's normal, that's biological. And to attack people for being biological is attacking humanity itself. It's attacking one sector of humanity that's lived peacefully within its own boundaries for a long time, brings other ones come in there in an immigration program and start attacking it from within. That's fermenting trouble. Who's the racist there? I mean, it's like saying, oh, you shouldn't be racist against this group or all that. Well, it's not racism, is it? Let's keep using the word racism. I'm also using the word wrongly because it's a class of cultures, and the culture is emotional, the culture is psychological, and the culture is intellectual. And because of that, you need to deal with that part of it. What is it in people's psychology, within the culture of their psychology, and what will cause them to go into another country that's invited them in with a welfare system that then starts to destroy that system and destroy that very system that was attracted to them? Do these people really want to believe that the system they've left in these other countries that has no welfare system, that are falling apart through constant wars, that live with so much poverty and illness and all that, and struggle, that causes them to leave, do they think by taking the rest of the world into that level of living improves everyone's existence? You have to wonder about what is called nihilism. When you go in to destroy a system that's successful, when you've destroyed your own system has been destroyed for whatever reason, and we know we can go back and look at the war crimes of Tony Blair, Bush and Johnny Howard and going in and doing what they did, to look at the cause of this. But the reporters can't examine that because they're, as far as I'm concerned, they don't understand that all the reporters in the world, all they need to do is stand united for freedom, united for free expression, and learn to use English in a way that doesn't, if it's going to say, well, you're using it in a way that offends this, that, they learn to use English in a way that doesn't offend others, because you have to be able to say and describe things reasonably, rationally, wherever you are, no matter where you are, because otherwise the dumbing down of the whole intercourse, intellectual intercourse, means the whole place is becoming inhuman, because humanity is about raising the average intelligence of them so it can have more intelligent conversations, raise up the culture of intelligence like amongst humanity, but instead the press are involved with the politicians to lowering the standard of ability to have a conversation. Effectively lowering the ability to have a conversation amongst humanity. And it's encouraged by politicians because no one can give examples of how, was a few, give examples of how to speak English in a way that describes things rationally. It's like there's a void in everyone's head these days. They're frightened of offending. So instead of thinking about what should I say and how can I say this in a way that says it honestly, they don't. They just go to war and start appeasing one side or the other, and that's not free speech. That's speaking freely but not saying anything. There's a difference between free speech and speaking freely and not saying anything. Politicians don't say anything. They don't actually. They utter thousands of words and they don't say anything. And most media writes thousands of columns of words and you analyse it. Very little is said. Very little is said that has any sort of rational meaning. Because they won't want to do that. And if the thing about reporters is, this is an important part, if they start to say, well, we're going to do our job, all the war reporters in the world, they rule. They do not realise how powerful they are. Politicians need the reporters to do what they're told. And that's what they need. But the reporters are a majority, whether they like it. They own the word. And they own the press because all they've got to do is become united and report things like Julian Assange did. What the politicians are going to do? Jail everyone? Suddenly jail everyone? Because in the end, when it's reported what's happening, people then will decide democratically who to actually support. This is where the press doesn't understand its role in democracy anymore. It's to sort of have people aware intellectually about what's real and what's actually going on. So therefore people can make proper decisions when it comes to election time about who to vote for and stop politicians hoodwinking them, saying things what are gobbledygook and meaningless to con the mass of people who've been sort of, if you like, they haven't been intellectualised enough by the education system or become their background or whatever. But so the media and the politicians are appealing to people with lower and lower education standards. It's rather than appealing to those people with the higher education standards. And that's a cultural thing. And the higher people education are, no matter where they are, I mean, the higher they are, unless they're deviously minded and nihilistic, the higher they are, the more types of humane they're maybe going to be in their intellectualization of what's going to happen. Because the higher we are, if we can rationalize things scientifically and create a clear understanding of what's actually going on, that then filters over and allows everyone to understand why something's happening. Why are people burning churches in France when they wanted to go and immigrate to a country to escape? So it says to escape that kind of behaviour. We want to go in there to escape this sort of, we'll seek asylum to escape violence. So you go somewhere and start being violent. Well, hang on a minute. Why, if you escape violence and you go somewhere and be violent, maybe maybe the people in these countries who are escaping are the ones who are causing the violence. You have to look at things realistically. It's not about race. It's about the culture, the intellectual and emotional culture. You have to say, what is the cause of this such terrible attitude that people will go around into another person's country and burn down a church? And why is it racist to react against people burning your churches? That's a holy war taken to France. Let's be frank about it. Even if their President Macron can't face the facts. But it's the end, possibly because next time the election comes along, it's maybe the end of these, whatever they are, trying to destroy the Western world by being the politicians in it. And it's up to the media now to grow up, snap out of it and stand united against to report the truth. They're going to jail all of them like Assange. Everyone's going to be in jail, be like Assange. Is that what's going to happen? Is that everyone's on a threat? They're going to send the army into newspapers and start shooting reporters because they all report honestly what's going on. Right, and that's in the West. And we worry about China and Russia. God. Good. All those years fighting communism and Stalinism and all that. And it's come now. Hitlerism has come to the West.